doubt many people would argue that Goku vs. Superman isn't one of the most famous, popular, and heated debates in the entire history of verse battles, just in general. However, there are plenty of other Kryptonians and Saiyans out there that could go toe-to-toe with one another and make for a far more interesting and overall better debate than Goku vs. Superman ever was. Today we'll be looking at Raditz, the older brother of Goku from both the Dragon Ball Z anime and manga. I'll not be using hero stuff for this for obvious reasons. And we'll be using the DCEU version of General Zod, the fallen general of Krypton. We are not using comics for this for pretty much the same reason we're not using heroes. Although the comics are an officially canon thing, the scaling for Zod is incredibly inconsistent as it seems to just vary from page to page almost. So for this we'll be using exclusively the General Zod we see within Man of Steel and the Flash live action movie, and exclusively the Raditz we see within the Dragon Ball Z manga and anime. All other versions of the characters will be completely ignored for this, which means don't be pulling feats from comic Zod or Heroes Raditz in the comments if one of these two loses and you don't agree with it. Comics versus Heroes Zod and Raditz can be an entirely new video in and of itself. This, like the vast majority of Saiyans within the Dragon Ball timeline, was born on planet Vegeta, a totally normal planet with yellow stars as moons and crazy monkey people that can literally channel their soul, or soul energy, aka ki, to just blast away entire planets with like a hand swipe, you know, as you casually do. In other words, Raditz was by no means a normal person. I mean, no Saiyan really is. They're a warrior race designed pretty much specifically to wipe out all life on planets and then just sell these lifeless rocks to whoever wants them, I guess. Most key users, Raditz possesses the ability to fly. He also possesses the ability to fire ki blasts from his hands. He can do this in several different ways, and even has some of his own unique ki blasts, such as the Double Sunday. Fires two high-powered beams of energy from both hands, the Shining Friday or a Crush/Clash, a beam where he essentially just throws a high-powered energy ball at you that explodes on contact. His weekly special where he just rapid fires energy blast at you until you stop moving. So shown repeatedly to be able to at least go toe-to-toe with Goku, a master martial artist, so he's pretty skilled in melee combat as well. He should also have at least some way of utilizing the afterimage technique, essentially just speed blitzing you without speed blitzing you is the best way I can describe that. For how powerful he should be in base, well, his cannon power level is roughly around 1500, however it varies greatly depending on what source you look at, with it being as low as 1200 and as high as 1600. Realistically for this, I'm going to go in the middle ground and just say it's between 14 and 1500. Meaning he should upscale characters like Master Roshi, who can blow up the moon with so much force it's been calced to above planetary, but he should realistically be a little bit weaker than Piccolo by the time of the Saiyan Saga. In his training for the Saiyan Saga, he was able to blow up the moon with so much force it's been calced to around large planetary. The reason for this is he basically completely erased the entire moon, meaning it's above your standard moon bust as it's pretty much subatomically obliterated. And although this is a feat for Piccolo, Raditz himself is somewhat around where Piccolo is when suppressed in the Saiyan Saga, and Piccolo blew up the moon while suppressed. He was by no means at full power, he still had his weight to close on, and he didn't really look like he was struggling all that much, not to mention that this was a no-name attack, not even something like the Special Beam Cannon or Masenko. So this was by no means a full power or even like mid-power attack. It was a casual ki blast, just a standard attack form, was enough to do this to the moon. So Raditz realistically, at bare minimum, scales to that range of power, meaning he is most likely in the large planetary ranges. At bare minimum, he would scale well above Roshi, who only had a power level around 138, whereas Raditz is obviously way higher than that, as I just explained. For speed, Raditz is by no means slow. He's faster than Goku was when they fought, by a lot. He's so fast he actually blitzes him at several points. Goku at this point massively upscales himself as a kid, obviously, and as a kid Goku could not only dodge lightning, but react to light speed attacks such as Ki Blast and Solar Flare, meaning Kid Goku was most likely in the at least relativistic plus to potentially FTL ranges of speed, As an adult, he is well, as an early Z Goku, as adult Goku's power range is wildly. He should at least be in the FTL plus range, and Raditz would be above that, to the point where you can even blitz Goku at points, so Raditz is pretty fast. Could technically downscale Raditz off Goku's filler speed on his trip to Namek when he was dodging stuff at literal trillions of times the speed of light. However, Goku at that point was stronger than Nappa, who was narratively implied to be like literally capable of one-shotting Raditz if he wanted to. So doing that is incredibly shaky, but not completely impossible, I guess. But at best, Raditz he's not at that level of speed. He can maybe downgrade off of it by a massive margin to get pretty decently into FTL plus range, but he's still only FTL plus. I wouldn't necessarily put him at the MFTL levels of speed yet. However, in his grade 8 form, which he can access during a full moon, he is roughly on the same level of power as someone like Vegeta. He is clearly above Nappa, pre-grade 8. He isn't necessarily as strong as Vegeta, but he's getting to those levels of power. Vegeta's a guy who with one finger can just nuke a planet. Thanks to statements from Nappa, we know Earth is a small planet in Dragon Ball. We also know from Dodoria that planets like Namek, which has 3 suns for some reason, aren't exactly that big. Namek is also officially stated bigger than Earth. Not to mention that Namek itself is potentially in the star ranges of size, as its explosion was so big it was seen from a distance, lighting up a decent portion of a galaxy. Now, if the planet Vegeta blew up was actually that big is definitely shaky, but even then, characters like King Vegeta, who's weaker than Prince Vegeta, the guy who with one finger blew up a planet, can casually with one hand blow up 3 planets, which should realistically be above Earth, and even if they were just Earth size, that gets into these star ranges of power. Meaning most likely in grade 8 form, Raditz is in that same star range of power. It's also important to note that King Vegeta did this casually, so you could unironically argue that Raditz is casually star level in grade 8. However, in grade 8, he also isn't in full control of himself, as there's no real implications he would be, so he'd most likely just be a mindless monster while in that state. It isn't also important to note that grabbing Raditz's tail or just ripping it off would severely weaken him. That said, even with his tail ripped off, he should still be in that same range of power he would be in base, just to a lesser degree. He should still be well above Roshi, at least. Before we get into how Zod stacks up here, I am using a Zod that is actually used to the Earth's atmosphere, and this is going off a what-if scenario that Zod actually beat Superman and succeeded in his goal to some degree, meaning the Zod is capable of using his full abilities and has control over his powers. Well, that might seem kind of unfair. I'm going to be very blunt. If we used a Zod that didn't know how to use his abilities at all, Raditz would quite literally crush him like it would not be close in any way, shape, or form. So we are giving Zod a bit of an advantage on his cannon's showings within Man of Steel, while also scaling to the Flash movie as well. So this Zod is the one from Man of Steel. We are just cross-scaling him with the Flash movie, so that's another thing. What can Zod do? Well, just like any Kryptonian under the Yellow Sun, he has a decent array of abilities. He has his X-ray vision, which does exactly what it sounds like. Although Kryptonians with no experience in Earth's atmosphere tend to not know how to use this very well, this is a Zod that we're allowing him to actually have experience within Earth's atmosphere. This fights also take place on Earth, obviously. I feel like that would be kind of obvious by where I'm going with this. He also has heat vision, which is confirmed to be beams of light, or lasers, as they're typically just referred to as laser eyes and not heat vision. They are literally just lasers. That's what they are. He should also have frost breath, as we know DCEU Superman has that, so Zod should get that as well as a form of super scream or super blow or something like that. A very powerful kind of shout scream thing that he can do. It's not often used. I don't think it's ever really used in combat, but Superman shows that ability, so Zod should have it as well. In terms of movement speed, he should consistently be in the hypersonic plus range, as Superman is consistently in that level during flight. Also, Zod can fly, obviously. He, like Superman, also doesn't really need oxygen, at least not as much as a human would, as he can stay in space and high atmosphere for extended periods of time. Also absorb radiation, be that ultraviolet or like other forms. However, typically it's just ultraviolet, as his main source of energy is obviously the sun. That does not mean he can just absorb ki blast. He might be able to get some energy off the light of the ki blast, but he can't just eat a ki blast. That's not how that works. Most Kryptonians would be able to just drain the other Kryptonians' heat vision, which sometimes they can kind of do that, but usually they can't, and nothing in the DCEU suggests they can. So we're going to assume he cannot just absorb ki because he absorbs ultraviolet, when ki is arguably not even ultraviolet radiation, as there's implications it shares properties of plasma and other higher energy forms of radiation like gamma as well. For how overall powerful and skilled Zod is, well, Zod would upscale stuff like Superman taking a nuke, as he should realistically also be capable of that, and Superman took the nuke well weakened by kryptonite still, so he should realistically be able to withstand a nuke. Not that impressive compared to what I just said for Raditz, but still, that's like the lowest end for him. He should also upscale, or not really upscale, but scale to the Superman's World Engine feat. Feat that Superman, while weakened, as the World Engine itself made the environment more like Krypton, obviously weakening Superman, was able to basically pull off. This Superman was able to fly at the World Engine and one-shot it. The World Engine's casual energy output is around multi-continental with a low ball. However, this can get much higher depending on how much time you think it would have taken for the World Engine to terraform Earth. However, for this, I'm going to put multiple metas out there. One I'm done scaling, and you can just determine which one you think is the best. Overall, Superman one-shotting it would imply that he's at least 10 times more powerful than the World Engine itself, and he did this while weakened, which gets him into the multi-continental and consistent end. According to Wonder Woman, the Superman prior to his resurrection Superman is definitely stronger than Zod, by the way, was around the same level as Steppenwolf, the same guy who could basically go toe-to-toe with the original Doomsday, who could destroy his moon, Krypton's moon. Due to the fact that fragments do not come back, that means he did overpower the gravitational binding energy, which does mean it is a moon-level feat. There's also the fact that they imply narratively that Steppenwolf is on par with a young Darkseid who, well, not only referred to as a world destroyer by Zack Snyder himself, but also says himself that after losing the Mother Box, he turned several worlds into dust, apparently, which would imply he can destroy planets. Now, does Zod scale directly to Steppenwolf? In the movie Man of Steel and in Flash, likely not. However, as this is one that we are giving full control for his powers, he should realistically scale to Superman pre-resurrection to some degree, and Superman does. So, off that logic, yes, this version of Zod will. It's also important to note that other characters within the DCU also have planetary metas, as Black Adam in a vision in a prequel comic for Dr. Fate was able to destroy the moon in a vision, not in actual canon, but in vision, was able to destroy a moon with so much force it's been interplanetary. And there's also a statement in the movie Black Adam that says he can, destroy the world. Does Zod scale to Black Adam? Probably not completely, but he should at least be around that level of strength once he's in full control of his powers. Meaning the only people in the whole verse that would realistically be above Zod within the DCEU obviously is Darkseid and post-resurrection Superman. And maybe Superman pre-resurrection, since he's probably still more skilled with his powers. Since both Superman and Zod scale to their own heat vision, and even weaker characters like Batman could dodge light-based attacks, obviously he's getting into the FTL range as well. With all that out the way, it's time to just have these two go at it.
Not even worth bragging about. What?
There's only one way this ends. Either you die.
You've got some nerve. Double Sunday!
Where did you train? On a farm?
I'll teach you to look down on me. You worthless trash! Saturday Crush! Now you understand the power of the Saiyans! Get back!
So why did Raditz win? Well, for starters, there's speed. Zod at the absolute best barely scales above FTL, as not even Superman really shows anything above like FTL plus at most, with him being able to dodge light-based attacks from Doomsday, and that's about the peak of his speed. You could argue he scales directly to the Flash, but that is kind of inconsistent with all the other showings he has just within the films. Raditz, meanwhile, within his Great Ape form, would be basically stronger than Nappa, who's stronger than King Kai. Obviously, reaction speed, and all that just kind of goes with your power level in Dragon Ball, at least early on. And in his Great Ape form, he has a higher power level than King Kai, who can perceive a ship traveling at 9.5 trillion times the speed of light, which is obviously way above anything Zod's ever shown. You want to scale his base form off the 10 times multiplier, basically downscaling off Great Ape's speed. This would get him at 950 billion times speed of light, which is still way above Zod. For raw power, to be blunt, Zod's lowest ends are around the multi-continental and country ranges, and his highest ends are just barely at the planetary range, whereas Raditz's low ends are at planetary, and his highest end within Great Ape is pretty consistently the large star, potentially even solar levels of power, which obviously puts him well above Zod, regardless of how you look at it. Meaning that in a realistic fight setting, he wouldn't even need to go Great Ape in order to win. The only reason he did here is because I wanted to make the fight longer and more entertaining, but realistically, if these two were to fight, it would most likely end with a single punch from Raditz after he just blitzes Zod into the ground, and the fight would just be over. That would realistically be how this fight would go. Anyway, the winner of this fight is Raditz.